Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and with the latest immigration figures out today, a major marker for the supposed success of Brexit, I want to discuss what actually has happened, what it means for the Tories, and in between all this, what some of the facts are which may be inconvenient for the Conservatives. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So the long anticipated immigration figures are out. Suella Braverman doesn't seem to have resigned, so that's that. But the net migration, that's the net immigration minus emigration, is 606,000 for 2022. For context, not only this is a record number, but the Conservatives have a long-standing policy that it should be about 100,000. And some of them even talk about it being negative, clawing it back. So the latest figures are not something the government feel they should crow about. And the Conservatives essentially have a couple of main problems here. The first is that there is no honest debate about immigration in the UK. Both the Conservatives and the media push the idea of it being bad, without even considering what it even means. What does net migration even mean? The second problem is that they have no coherent plan to deal with what they think is the problem. For example, I've often said that the reason we have a really high backlog of asylum cases and the subsequent costs of accommodation, which really upsets Nigel Farage, is because the government simply stopped processing claims. It's not because we actually have this out of control tide of refugees coming across the channel. There are more people seeking asylum in the UK since Brexit, certainly. This is because we left the Dublin Agreement, whereby other member states would head some of them off. In fact, if you are anti-asylum, leaving the Dublin Agreement was an act of gross stupidity, really. And the immigration minister, Robert Jenrick, so this is the guy who's a decent bloke, honest bloke, This is the guy who not only was up to no good over planning applications, but the guy who's just lost his driving licence for belting along at pretty much double the speed limit in his car last year. So, as you can see, nice, decent, honest chap. He said that the reason the government don't process claims is because it would encourage more refugees to come here. You just have to shake your head at the stupidity, don't you? Beyond another pathetic lie, it's an admission that the government are deliberately not processing claims. Well, the consequence of not processing claims is we have to pay more in accommodation and Nigel Farage gets upset. So they can stop whining about that. Only Jenrick wasn't done being stupid, because he also said the government's committed to reducing the backlog, in fact getting rid of it this year. Although later on Downing Street seemed to suggest, it's not actually going to be gone by the end of this year. Oh really? You're going to miss another target? That amazes me. So, but think about this. In the same House of Commons debate, Robert Jenrick, immigration minister's there taking questions. So he says that not processing claims is a good policy because it keeps the number of refugees down. I mean, the actual data would suggest otherwise, but whatever. But in the same session, he also says that the government are going to clear the backlog this year. Give up. But asylum is just one part of the immigration policy area. It's not even the largest. It's a really small part of it. The Conservatives are against asylum, or so they say, because it suits them to persuade the people in this country that they're robbing blind. The reason they're poor is because of foreigners. It's not because of the Tories. Hang on, didn't we have foreigners with Labour in power? We weren't poor then. No, it was the foreigners. But we weren't poor when Labour were in power. Yeah, but it's still the foreigners. Yeah, all right then. And what easier foreign target than those who have to get here via unconventional routes because the government have scrapped all the safe routes. So therefore you have the visible side of it, the channel crossings. But they also have to be against other forms of immigration, because asylum is a really small part of immigration, really. Because without foreigners to blame, people might work out that actually it is the Tories making them poorer. So let's just play devil's advocate here. Let us just suppose that I was advising the Conservatives what they needed to do in order to reduce net immigration, or at least, take a practical look at it. My own views aside, I'm being paid to come up with some practical points, which they can then use to form a workable policy. I think the main point I would want to make is that if the government wants any sort of practical policy, it needs to understand, net immigration is not just one thing. For example, so net migration figures, they say net migration of 606,000, but that's a combination of roughly 1.16 million immigrants coming to the UK and 557,000 emigrating, leaving, buggering off. So, for example, if emigration were to go down, then even if immigration staying the same, your net migration goes up. So it looks like there's a bigger immigration problem, when actually all that's happened is fewer people have left. And what might make emigration go down? Well, the fact that British citizens are no longer allowed to simply up sticks and go and live and work in the EU countries. Now, unless the result of leaving the single market was to reduce immigration by the same level or more as emigration, then net immigration would naturally go up. I don't think that's actually happened in this case, but that would be a possibility. And there are also different types of immigration. So, for example, do either the Tories or the Gammons really care about university students? Someone coming from, it doesn't matter, Singapore, to study at Oxford, spend a few years there, maybe do some postgraduate studies, spending their money in our local economy, then they go back home to do a job there with their British education. Do they care about that? No, why should they? They bring in loads of money to the country, then leave after their study. In fact, university education is one of the very few growth areas we have left after Brexit. It's absolutely stunning. As an export, it's brilliant, because normally for exports, the idea of export is the goods or services have to leave the country. Well, there you hit trade barriers. University education is absolutely marvellous because the customers come here. So they're coming here, but we're still exporting effectively. It's all very mad. But it means that Brexit has nothing to do with that. We control that. We control the trade barriers. We don't have to have any at all. So trade barriers only exist for that part of our economy if the UK government place them there. Speaking of which, the UK government have just placed a trade barrier on universities this year by banning families from travelling with students. That's going to cost us. But that's a little aside. The point is that the net migration figures are really a mess of different types of immigration, because no one really cares about emigration. We could split emigration up into different parts. No one cares about that, though. It's only the immigration. And the thing is, even of the immigration, the Gammons don't care about most of it. So wouldn't it make sense for the government to separate out categories? Instead of just reporting the net migration figures, actually split it into categories. I mean, it would actually be valid in this case. This isn't like removing the largest source of crime from the crime figures, then claiming crime's gone down. You'd just be categorising the different factors which make up net migration. There's emigration. Nobody cares whether that goes up or down. So why take the flak for net migration going up because emigration has gone down? Foreign students are fine. They bring money into the country. I mean, foreign workers do as well. They boost our economy and pay more in taxes than a UK citizen on the same income. But we're struggling to persuade the Gammons of that one because the Daily Mail's not helping. But as easy as pie to persuade them that foreign students are a good thing. They're like tourists, only they stay longer and spend more money. Another major contributor to the current migration figures are from refugees, specifically from Hong Kong and Ukraine. Now, they might have a bit of an issue with refugees. They haven't got an issue with the refugees from Hong Kong and Ukraine, have they? The Conservatives fully supported both of those efforts, actually allowed something close to safe routes for them. Not easy routes, but safe routes. The Conservatives really are the victim of their own lies, instead of having a frank debate about immigration, which would naturally include a discussion about what it really means. They simply decided, oh, it's Brad, you see, we could use this to distract the fact that we're picking their pockets, you see. But now they're stuck with these numbers, which look like an abject failure. But in reality, under the bonnet, it's caused by refugees from Hong Kong and Ukraine. Nobody minds this. They account for 166,000. Then well over 600,000 student visas issued that last year, about 624,000 or something. And there's about another 138,000 or something for dependents. These are people who come here, do the study, go away. Vast majority then leave the country and go and work back at home or somewhere else. I mean, that's about 900,000 immigrants into the UK who are here for reasons that even the Daily Mail can't be asked to attack. 88,000 of them, 88,000 of the immigrants coming to the UK were British. They were just living somewhere else and came back to the UK. They're in the figures. I'm not sure how messed up their previous home country must have been for them to decide, yes, 2022, that's the year to come back. That is the year to come back when the whole country's on fire. Yeah, that's when we'll come back to dear old Blighty. Poor sods. Maybe they were deported. Maybe they failed to get settled status in the EU. I don't know. But that's basically 1 million people who immigrated to the UK last year, for which no gammon has any real objection. Because they think of immigrants and they think of the person coming here, nicking their jobs, or coming here on the boats for a free hotel room. And it's not. So 86% of all these immigrants were people that you ever talk to a gammon in a pub about. Go, what's your problem with these there? I ain't got a problem with those. Don't give a shit about them. So just break it down. When it comes to immigration, because that's the only bit of net migration anyone cares about. 14% are refugees from Hong Kong or Ukraine. 65% are just over here to study. And so people who leave afterwards, 8% were British. Doesn't actually leave a very high percentage that even the most xenophobic gammon has an issue with. 14% are the ones who are actually beneficial to our economy and our society, but the gammons have a beef with. If the government had bothered to tell people what immigration actually is, these figures wouldn't even be political. They'd have just reported them. Oh, look at that. Okay. In fact, if they were really honest, people would see that immigration isn't actually high enough. After all, we still have a massive labour shortage. But the net migration figures are not really a problem. Like, you know, I go back to the Conservatives saying, oh, we should have like net migration at 100,000. Oh, right. So let's say it's 100,000. Okay, let's say you do that and everyone's happy. Okay. So then let's say a load of universities goes, actually, we can attract a load more foreign students to come here, spend a load of money in this country, boost our GDP, right? Which means we make more money, we pay more taxes, you get better public services. We reckon we can get an extra 50,000 foreign students into the country. Are we seriously going to say, no, because then the net migration would go above 100,000? Are we really going to say that? That doesn't seem sensible. The Tories have made this a political problem because of their lies. And they've made it a political problem for which they will suffer at the ballot box next year because of their lies. And do you know the best bit? They'll naturally come down after next year. Because do you know what? This is one of those cases where they really can say it's global issues. You know, without the following Labour government even having to do anything, they'll just come down. Because the numbers look artificially high due to some of those factors that actually are genuinely global factors. Assuming the world obviously can stop doing an impression of the Tory party for a few years and calm down a bit. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.